We live in a world that is starving for attention. This self-obsessed culture of likes and follows, it's what makes us tick on a daily basis. We obsess over this. We spend so much energy building this facade in the digital world that I think we've forgotten who we really are. In this world where people are so focused on being something they're not, we've forgotten what branding really is and the power it has. A brand is a mark of quality, consistency, authenticity, something that people trust, that people rely on, something that fulfills you. Branding experts define the term in all different ways, when really what it is so simple. Branding is the first impression you give others. People put so much energy into being something they're not, where branding is really the art of being who you already are.
Brand expert Phil Pallen.
Brand expert Phil Pallen.
Wow. Hello. Look at your beautiful faces. Welcome to Hall of Fame 11. I'm like the Walmart greeter, but the Hall of Fame version. I'm so happy to see you here in real life. I'm happy to see you online. I mean, I can't see you, but I know you're there. We are gonna have so much fun today. There are a lot of places you could be right now, right? Some of you could be in bed, some of you could be doing other things, but you decided to be here with me. And in 2020, I feel like time is a limited resource that we have. So the fact that you are sharing that with me today means the world to me, and I'm just honored that you're here. This is gonna be fun. I'm gonna do a talk today that you have never heard before. It has been 9 years since I graduated this wonderful place. And I just need to turn to the profile, and you will see by my gray hair, there's like many hairs for each year that I've graduated. I have learned a lot in 9 years, and I'm looking forward to sharing some of those things I've learned with you over the years, right from the minute I left. So since I graduated Full Sail, you'll hear the story. Some of you know the story. I've been working as a brand strategist. So essentially, I help people and companies position, build, and promote their brands, quite literally all over the world. So regardless of industry, regardless of people or company, the process is exactly the same. Today, you're gonna get some takeaways as it relates to your own brands, personal brand or company brands, but you're also gonna feel some of the stress and the pressure that I felt minutes after graduating this place. And I know some of that stress and excitement is felt by many of you, right? I see people nodding. Some of you are years away from graduation. Some of you are months, maybe 1 month. I get it. Particularly for those of you, international students. I was also one of you, right? We all have the additional pressure of not only finding a job, but a way to stay in the country. And trust me, it's not easy these days. We'll talk about all of this. I'm gonna give you 9 things I've learned in 9 years since I graduated, and ideally we have time at the end for questions. It has been exactly 9 years, 270 clients in 28 countries. I'm very happy to be back here in Florida. I was just in Brazil for 2 months. Not by fluke, you know that's summer in Brazil when it's winter for us, right? So I choose my places strategically. But even now, years after leaving or graduating this place, I can't even stress how much Full Sail, how much of a role Full Sail continues to play in my life. I just had the honor of visiting high schools and companies, throughout Brazil, in Sao Paulo, and Rio, and Brasilia. I mean, all kinds of places with my dear friend Carol, who works for Full Sail and is a great friend of mine. I mean, it's such an honor to continue to see your beautiful faces every time I come back here and to continue staying in touch, even if we can't be together in real life. You know how difficult it is to find me in real life. I'm like Carmen Sandiego, constantly escaping country to country. But it's very easy to find me online. So I'm going to give you my social media handle. I'm never going to get you in trouble for being on your phones in my session. In fact, I encourage it. I want you to be tweeting. Take glamour photos of me, please. Get your questions organized and ready, and I hope that I can answer them at the end of today, but if not, there's a whole dedicated session to Q&A. I am here to help you, not just me, but all of the Hall of Famers, the grads, friends of this amazing place are roaming the hallways this week, and we are here to help. I have also, as a little reward for you for showing up today, I don't know how many people are in here, maybe 50, 60, 70? Math was never my strong point. There are almost 400 RSVP'd on the app for this very session, so we have people joining online. I, as a reward for you for showing up, have compiled notes for you. philpallen.co/HOF11. I'm giving you my 5 takeaways for building your brands: positioning, photography, brand identity, building your websites. Don't think for a second that I think of you any differently than I would think of a client, someone who's been in the industry for years. Makes no difference. We are on a mission to build proof of concept so that the minute we leave this place, or even sooner, people start to buy into you, to what you're selling, what you represent, all of these things. I have 3 talks that will be live streamed. This, of course, is the first one. Tomorrow, I should promo this a little bit, and it's at the same link down at the bottom. You'll see on the slide, philpallen.co/HOF11. At the very same time tomorrow, live, I will be branding one of you, a Full Sail student, live on stage. That's part 1. It's called Brand Me, an interactive personal branding experience. That's the first step. The second step will be the same time on Thursday, and that's where I'm taking questions from you guys, okay? Are you ready for this? We're going to go down memory lane. You're going to like this story if you don't know it yet. 2011, the year that I graduated Full Sail. Oh boy. I remember thinking, wow, I'm graduating in 2 months and I have no idea what my job is going to be. So I started applying for jobs, as we all do. I mentioned I was an international student, so I had that additional pressure of having to figure out, how do I find someone who can sponsor me to stay in the country and prove that I can do something that an American can't? Oh my God, right? Not that going back to Canada was the worst thing, free healthcare, but to work in the entertainment business, we know that this is certainly the place that you want to at least start your career. I applied for a lot of jobs, a lot of internships. And I know, and you know, a big part of this, anytime the word entertainment is attached to a job description, you can basically assume there are 1,000 more applications for that one position. I applied for a lot of jobs. One of them was a little wild. It was a little out there. My friend sent it to me. My friend is now my colleague, and we work together on every single client project. Her name is Lauren. And Lauren said to me, Phil, you should apply for this. Charlie Sheen is looking for a social media intern. Okay, what's involved with the application? A tweet. Perfect, sign me up. 140 characters, I can handle that. So I did what everyone should do. This is thing number 1, seize the opportunity, show up, participate, even if it's an internship competition for a celebrity with 90,000 other people that submitted. This is a picture of me with a lot less gray hair in 2011, somewhere on campus, working on the website. My very first website was for myself, and it was called tigerbloodphil.com. I remember it like yesterday. I was in my dorm, just about a mile away from campus. I'd submitted for this application, and I got an email right before bed that said, "Congratulations, you've made it to the next round." And I thought, I bet a bazillion other people also received this same email. The next morning when I woke up, I had an email from a journalist, one in London, Ontario, which is where I studied at Western University for my undergraduate degree before I moved to Florida and studied at Full Sail. And the journalist said to me, "Phil, is there a chance that you received this email? We caught wind of a handful of Canadians that are in this competition to intern for Charlie Sheen." And at the time, Charlie Sheen was all over the news. We remember that, right? Tiger blood and strippers and all kinds of other things we shouldn't talk about. PG. You're giggling because you know what I'm talking about. Long story, very long story that I'm going to keep short for the purpose of today. I found out from this journalist that this email I received confirming that I had made it to the next round was a bigger deal than I thought. 90,000 people entered this competition, and I was one of 50 that made it to almost getting this internship. And boy, was I excited. It was kind of ridiculous when I actually think about it now, because I would step out of class. My professors were so gracious here. I would step out of class to do radio interviews. And I don't know if you know anything about Canadians, but let me tell you, they say sorry, they apologize, and they get very excited when fellow Canadians have success in entertainment or sports. And even though I hadn't had success, the fact that my name could be attached to Charlie Sheen's at the time meant that they could talk about Charlie Sheen in the news. In Canada, there's a law, Canadian content. 35% of all content must be Canadian. It was very convenient that they could cover what was happening with Charlie Sheen in the news every day and then say, "By the way, there's a Canadian in the running to become Charlie Sheen's social media intern. His name is Phil, and he's from a small town named Belleville, Ontario, Canada." It made the perfect story. And even while I was studying at Full Sail, I was also getting more real-world education in how to handle the media, and how to build a brand, and how to tweet, in what social media was. I was still studying here in my master's degree while I was vying to become Charlie Sheen's social media intern. I was a guest on the Daily Buzz. I did the whole circuit of national morning shows in Canada remotely from my dorm. And I did over 100 TV, radio, and print interviews. When the Canadian press called me and said, "Phil, are there any other Canadians in the running to become his intern?" I said, "No, just me." "What do you need? More videos? What else do you need to talk about me?" Really. I mean, it was, my goal was to figure out, how can I make people care about this? It can't just be about me. It can't just be about me. That's boring. You know those people, those friends on Facebook. "Vote for me." You can vote every day. Just because I can doesn't mean I'm going to. Those annoying people, I didn't want to be one of them. So I thought, how can I share this experience and bring people along for the journey? We made crazy videos where I would blink and my eyes would become tiger stripes. I didn't know how to do that. Shout out to Caroline, my first roommate from Full Sail. I was a fellow student in a different program. We moved out to LA together. And this article right over here, "Forget Sheen, Hello Seacrest," which I now have laminated because it's a big part of this story. Front page of the entertainment section. What people didn't know was that through my connections at Full Sail, I was lining up a second opportunity in case I didn't win this one. And I've never shared the specifics of that, and I'm going to share them today on how that happened. Thing number one is that you want to seize every opportunity you have. And opportunities exist even before you notice it's an opportunity. A big part of this is showing up, persevering, being someone that people like and want to be around. The story doesn't necessarily have the super happiest of endings. So get ready for this while I improvise while my keynote crashes. How about that? Don't I look calmer than a cucumber? The story doesn't necessarily have the happiest of endings. So here's a press clipping from Adweek. And I showed you the Toronto Star one. Well, 1 week before I was set to graduate with my master's degree in entertainment business, I get a call from LA. It's the VP from Ryan Seacrest Productions. Thanks to a connection here on campus, which I'll tell you about in a second, I was set to become one of the first interns for Ryan Seacrest, his production company. This is what I was concocting, just in case I wasn't the lucky one to win the Charlie Sheen competition. Well, 1 week before I was set to move, I get a call from the VP. I was at Universal Studios celebrating the fact that I was about to graduate, and he says to me, "Phil, are you sitting down?" And I said, "No, I'm at the theme park. Why would I be sitting down? But sure, I'll sit." He says, "I have really bad news. We know you're really excited to be here, to move out to LA. You're doing that in a week. I'd found it up. I don't drive. I do lots of things, but driving is not part of the Phil Pallen program. I'd picked a sublet for 4 months around the corner from E. He knew all this, and he said, I have bad news. We have $1 million advertisers threatening to drop because of all the Google alerts in the press that you've stirred up, connecting our squeaky clean family brand, Ryan Seacrest, to Charlie Sheen's brand of drugs and strippers. We don't even know you yet. You don't even work for us, and we're already having to do damage control. So sorry, as much as we'd love to have you, you're fired." That was my warm welcome to LA. And he said, "Don't talk about it," which clearly I'm breaking that rule. Oops. Life's exciting. Live on the edge. So it was 10 p.m. on a Friday, and I thought, I literally have no idea what to do. It was thanks to Josh Mora, who, this keeps crashing. It was thanks to Josh Mora, who here on campus had just started as an employee. Josh was introduced to me by Pat, one of my dearest, greatest friends, Pat Bishop. And I called Pat at 10 p.m. on a Friday, and I said, "Pat, I have no idea what I'm gonna do. Everyone's asking me. I've moved to LA, I have no internship, I have no connections. Everyone's asking me how Ryan Seacrest smells. What is it like? Have you seen the Kardashians?" I mean, you can imagine all the questions. And I wasn't allowed to even talk about it. And Pat said, as Pat would, she said, "Well, we'll figure this out." Josh, who made the initial introduction through a personal connection, said, "Phil, this moment is tough, but you're gonna work through it." Pat said, "We're gonna call some people, we're gonna make this work," at 10 p.m. on a Friday. And Jess Pollock in career development, my rep, she said, "You know what? I'm gonna call some friends. Not just work friends, personal friends." She used her personal friendships and connections to help me, and lined up in less than a week a backup internship that allowed me to go and work and help. It wasn't paid, but they gave me desk space in their production studio. They nicknamed me Guru. They said, "You can come here, we're not gonna pay you, or you can work with us, you can hang out, have lunch with us. We're just allowed to ask you any social media related questions." And I said, "Deal." And that was how this started. This is why I say relationships over knowledge. Knowledge is important, and you will get a lot of it here on campus. But nothing is more important than who you know, who you build relationships with right here on campus. Today, tomorrow, yesterday, the people you want to keep on their radar, not holding your resume in front of their face and saying, "By the way, I graduate in a month," but actually meaningfully checking in. Building relationships. There are people in this room that arrived here hours early to be able to be here in real life that I consider to be some of those people. Relationships. Thing number 2, relationships over knowledge. 2012, let's move to the next year. I'm back on campus, not for Hall of Fame, but it was for a panel. And you may have seen this one before. Full Sail actually has this as part of the curriculum. It's called U.com, Building Your Brand. And I was especially sassy and spicy that day. I think it has like 30,000 views. That day, I also met Nikki Wilson, who works here. She's in our Full Sail family. She's an instructor. And she said, Phil, I have someone you need to meet who's also here today. His name is Joshua McKinley. We worked together when we were filming Project Runway. Project Runway season 9 was on the air at that time. She said, you've got to meet him. He's so nice, and maybe you can give him a hand with building his brand or managing his social media. We met. We all went out together that night as a group, and Joshua became my first client on television. All thanks to literally, physically being on this campus by fluke the day that he was here as well with Nikki. And so I would work with Joshua to help manage the social media craziness when the show was on, but also I learned so much about what would eventually become a huge part of my career, which is helping celebrities and politicians and famous people and professionals position, build, and promote their brands, building brand voice. So Joshua was like, how do we reply to people, so they think it's you and not me helping you? Making his first website, designing his business cards, taking full advantage of the fact that he was on the air. He had what we would call the privilege of platform. Eyeballs paying attention to your every move can be very powerful, and it's a privilege. That was my first TV client. Thing number 3 is a reminder that it's a marathon, not a sprint. Because while I can tell you the story about Joshua, I also need to tell you the story about who my first 3 clients were. A wholesale candle supply company in Ohio, a real estate agent in Manhattan Beach that I had met in my first few weeks of moving to LA after being fired. Remember that story? And a makeup artist. All 3 of them said to me, Phil, is there a chance that you could help us figure out our social media strategy, help build our websites? And even when I wasn't super comfortable with that, because I had only really done it for myself, the answer is yes, right? The answer is yes. And then you go on YouTube and try to figure it out. Or go back to your class notes from Full Sail and say, oh, how do I do that again? Right? The answer was yes. And they were my first 3 clients. Yes, of course, I went to Full Sail. I wanted to work in entertainment. I wanted to work with talent. I wanted to work with celebrities. It's a marathon, not a sprint. So, have those goals in mind. But if anyone is going to remind you about the importance of being practical, it's going to be me. Because moving out to LA after being fired with no friends, no family, no one to support me, with the additional pressure of having to figure out how do I stay in this country, I had to actually take a second and go, what practical skills do I have that I can sell? I could kind of design a logo. I could definitely figure out WordPress, I think. And if I didn't know something, I could be resourceful and find the answer online. I was interested in branding. I had what I would call proof of concept immediately after graduating. The ability to go to someone and say, look at what I've done. In my case, it was for myself. I created a social media campaign that got me over 100 interviews in the press worldwide. I can't promise the same thing for you, but certainly we can try together. That's proof of concept. If you've had the privilege of working prior to coming to Full Sail, fantastic. But guess what? The projects you're doing on this campus, do you think potential employers, gatekeepers, decision makers really care if it's a school project? No. All we're looking for is what I call proof of concept. The ability for us to trust that you can do the job based on something you've done previously. Proof of concept. Tangible skills. Those are the things that helped me get work. Let's jump to 2013. Smooth sailing. I'm finding my niche working with TV hosts, specifically working with some entertainment brands, one of them being a YouTube entertainment channel that some of you may have heard of. It's still around, although they've rebranded since this happened in 2013, called Hollywire. Through connections, relationships, they found out about me. I said I'd love to help you design a new logo, design a website, really rebrand, photography, all of it. But I gotta tell you, this was the first moment after saying yes where I felt a little bit in over my head. And I can admit that, right? This was a big brand. Hundreds of thousands, actually millions of subscribers to this channel where they needed print and web collateral all over the place. And I thought, I'm also working with other clients at the same time. I'm also trying to figure out my immigration stuff to be able to stay in the country. And I realized I had to make a decision. Was I gonna be a one-man show forever? Was I gonna be a graphic designer, even though I actually never studied graphic design, but I was doing it and I was already selling it? Or, so was I gonna be a graphic designer or was I gonna be a brand strategist? This was one of the more difficult, but I would say one of the top 3 most important decisions I've made in my career. And one of the things I've learned, which was work smart and not hard. 2013 was the year I hired contractors. It was terrifying because all of a sudden I had to pay people besides myself. And by 2014, I had 3 working for me. Ton, a graphic designer, who was my very first contractor. Lauren, who I mentioned earlier, was my best friend from the first day of my undergraduate. We worked together every single day. And Kostya, who lives in Europe, who I had actually hired to do my branding and is now my senior graphic designer and does all of my brand identity projects. Still, to this day, all 3 of them work for me. But how terrifying was it to charge clients money, but then have to figure out how do I save some of that for myself and also give it to my contractors? Well, 2014 was the year that, yes, I hired 3 people, but I also doubled my revenue in a single year. Because I had people to help, and I had to figure out how to delegate, and I had to figure out how to prioritize. And then I had to prioritize things that I didn't necessarily love. I love making beautiful things. But all of a sudden, I needed to think about business development and bringing in more clients and negotiating higher contracts to make sure everyone got paid, to do research on my competitors, to know, am I losing it? Am I charging the right amount? Am I underpriced? All of these things. There's no magic formula or blueprint for this, by the way, to figure it out. You can ask people like me to reflect on the moments and those learning opportunities, but what I've done is not necessarily the blueprint for you. Some of this just takes figuring it out, and it takes making mistakes. In the moment of mistake making, which could be undercharging, it could be not charging up front, at least half of the project total in case they disappear, right? I know that some of you can relate with some of these challenges, and they're awful in the moment, but they're so good 6 months, a year out, 2 years later, because in those moments of mistake making, you learn really important things that you implement down the road. Sometimes it takes being burned to be able to implement the decisions, to make the decisions you need to make to grow your business. So let's jump to 2015. Thing number 4, hard work isn't enough. Working smart is what you need to do. By 2015, I am working and building my brand, my niche in personal branding. Judy Stakey, who's a very recognized personality in the music business, worked for Warner Chappell for many, many years until she went off and did her own thing, helping songwriters and budding prospects in music launch their careers. Javier Baher, I was branding at this time, was a consultant based in the UK. Deanna Paul was a lawyer and a journalist who now works for the Times. Wynne Claybaugh is the dean of Paul Mitchell Schools. 2015 was the year I branded a lot of important, busy people. And it drilled into my head something I repeat every time I'm back on campus. Them, not you. It was a client of mine that said to me, and I'll never forget this, he said to me, without even probably realizing the impact this would have on me, he said to me, Phil, at some point or another, we are all in service to someone else. And I thought, damn, you're right. All of us serve in some way, shape, or form. You could be writing tweets, you could be doing hair. Whatever it is, we serve clients. And from that moment on, and in working with some of these people, I realized the importance of prioritizing them over me. That, thing number 5, I attribute to one of the most important lessons and values that I uphold in every single email, every single text that I send to clients. I actively think, how can I trim this in half? Because my clients are on television, they're on stages, right? Time. It's the first thing I said to you when I came out here. Time is the limited resource that we're all chasing. Content is unlimited. Time is a limited resource. How can you prioritize? How can you serve in a way that helps people, not hinders or makes it about you? 2016, so we're moving along. I've built my brand. In a few years, I'm kind of unofficially the guy you call in LA if you're a TV host or you're a professional. I had worked in a number of industries, so friends of those people were calling me and saying, I love what you did for this person. Can you help me out? And it was a relationship, a referral, a friendship, a past connection. Actually, Lauren, who's now working with me on every project, the referral was to one of my first corporate clients, Campbell's Soup. This is new territory for me, 2016. We have a contract with Campbell's Soup. We're helping them with their Instagram content. And they say, Phil, can you help us out with our smoothie brand? Yes. I hire, by the way, about 95% Full Sail grads that have moved out to LA for their production. You're welcome. And it's going great. So great that they say, Phil, we love what you did last month. Can you take on another brand for us? And another brand, and another brand. To the point where we're juggling 4 or 5 of their brands, content creation for their social media channels. And the best part about this, from my perspective, Full Sail students were being employed. My mom was food stylist. Diva, she is, flying down from Canada every month to style. And all I had to do on this job was walk to the mailbox, pick up the check, and walk 1 block to Chase and deposit it. I had fully delegated this. But due to circumstances and changes and corporations, trust me, I hadn't experienced corporate, and I finally got my taste of it. Don't love it. But due to corporate, they changed hands. They took a lot of things in-house. And I had put 7, no, maybe 5, 6, maybe 7 eggs in one basket. And imagine that basket dropping and being destroyed. In the span of 1 single month, I went from 7 projects for 1 client to 0. So, I learned the lesson. Don't put all of your eggs in one basket, particularly those of you that are going to be in service, consultants, strategists, while tempting to say yes to every opportunity that comes your way, right? I'm telling you to seize the opportunities, but I'm also reminding you to look after you. Don't let one person or one source have too much say or control. Now I'm going to share the stage with a few success stories of Full Sail students. Success measured by me, happening right now. I put this in my timeline at 2017 because I met both of these students on campus during Hall of Fame, and I checked in with them both over the last week. In fact, I've seen both of them more recently. Any of you who know me well know that I travel around. I'm particularly fond of Latin America. Nicholas, who is an EBMS grad, who is from Colombia, is now back in Colombia. Vitor, who is from Brazil, some of you may know Vitor, is now back in Brazil. While I met both of these students in 2017, I checked in with them recently to find out how they're doing. I find it interesting that years later, both of them stayed in the US. Any international students know a big part, a big joy, a big opportunity of being able to come to Full Sail is to be able to stay here longer, on OPT and find a sponsor and stay in the country. And that's great. But for some of us, we're not that lucky. Some of us have to go home. Not going to get political, only going to say that it is now more difficult than ever to stay in this country. Zip your mouth, don't say more. I'm happy to report both Nicholas and Vitor have returned home and have become what I would call big fishes or budding big fishes in smaller ponds. I'm incredibly proud of them. I'm proud of our students that stay in the US, and I'm proud of our students that also return, not just home, but to other markets. It can feel in the moment of being told that you can't stay in America, it can feel like the world is ending. I'm one of the lucky ones that got to stay here and figured out a way to stay here. I have my business remains based in the US. The only thing that's not really based here is me. But I'm proud to say in 2018, I started to move my home base. I packed everything up in LA about a year and a half ago, moved it to Florida actually, so that it would be accessible for me in case I needed to pick anything up. Ended up buying a house here that I rent on Airbnb. philpallen.house is the website. Branded a house and moved around. I just flew here last night from Puerto Vallarta. After this, I'll go to Barcelona, Norway. Where else am I going? Indonesia, Portugal. Where else am I going? Iceland, Germany. There's other places, I just can't remember them. Since 2018, I've been more on the move. And not only am I enjoying spending time in places like Brazil, Colombia, Mexico, but there are opportunities that exist outside this country. In fact, 2 projects that I've done within the last year, one of them being branding the Canada-UK Chamber of Commerce. I not only branded them, but I gave a keynote for them, where the High Commissioner of Canada, handpicked by the Prime Minister, introduced my keynote in the UK. I went to Brazil for the first time immediately after Hall of Fame last summer. And there I was working with Carol and our team in Brazil and visiting schools for the first time. I had so much fun. I went back last month as well. But through connections and relationships, I got the opportunity to work with an artist named Isa, who you may not have heard of, because I hadn't heard of her. But I'm telling you, every single person in Brazil knows of her, because she's effectively the Beyonce of Brazil. So while, yes, there are tons of opportunities in this amazing country, don't feel defeated if you have to go home. Let me be the little person that reminds you that it's okay. That actually, I worked for years to be able to stay here, and now I actually choose to be outside and just come back to say hello to you. And for those of you that are from the US, I'm including you in this. Think big. Geography matters less than ever before. We have degrees at Full Sail and opportunities, job opportunities, that don't necessarily tie you to one particular location. I'm a big fan of those jobs. And while I didn't actively choose one that was going to be digitally nomadic compatible, I realize now in hindsight, today I reflect on some of these things I've learned since I graduated, that has become one of the most important things for me. In the last panel, I was asked, how do I measure success? I measure success by how much freedom I have to make my own decisions. And for me, being able to decide to go wherever I want to go pretty much feels good, and I don't plan on changing it anytime soon. I want to round off our discussion today with two more things. So thing number 8, opportunities exist everywhere. And thing number 9, the last one, you can't predict the future. It's important to be thinking about where this train is headed. And every single day, I'm giving you permission to spend 15, 20, 30 minutes on you to build your brand, marathon, not a sprint, to build your brand, to build your proof of concept, to have something so that when you leave this place, people will take you seriously. But you can't plan everything out today because there are factors that will hugely influence what happens. So yes, it's a balancing act between being proactive in what you're building, your brand for the future, but also being cooler than a cucumber, like when my keynote crashes 3 times on a live presentation. Things are going to happen that we can't anticipate today, but it is all part of this journey. Those things work together in addition to the amazing, really, family that you have here on campus. The timing works well because I think I'm one of the first presentations this week. Let me be your official welcomer into Hall of Fame 11, into this amazing family, this amazing ecosystem that exists all the time, but it's cranked on high this particular week. Anyone who's come back, walking around, roaming around, they are here for you. Build relationships, stay on the radars of people that are just as excited to meet you as you are for them. So the final thing I'm going to remind you is that I've compiled all of my actionable takeaways for building your brands at this link, and remind you tomorrow I'm back, live streamed, branding a student part 1 of Brand Me, an interactive personal branding experience. You know, in the past, I branded Hall of Famers. This year, I'm branding one of you. Part 2 will be Thursday at the same time, 12 Eastern, and that's where I'm going to turn the tables and answer some of your burning branding questions. We probably have time for what? 1 or 2 questions now, so if you have, some lucky person gets to ask a question. Know that you've got my social media handle, @PhilPallen. I am just as active online as I am in real life, so make sure you say hello. If you took the time to watch this live stream, let me know, say hello, and I look forward to meeting all of you. First question.
Yay.
Yay!
So I have an escape room here. I
Cool.
own it. We've had it for a year now. So now that we are comfortable where we are at, we're ready to push our branding, push our, just to be more competitive in the Orlando market, which is pretty saturated with escape rooms. So just any practical advice for those of us who might have our branding, but are ready to push it and bring it to a second level.
Great. I wish you hired me to brand it, because I've always wanted to brand something cool like that. Let's talk later. No. It can be overwhelming to know where to go, what direction to go. Branding in itself is somewhat ambiguously defined by so many different experts. The minute I find myself or my clients overwhelmed with what direction to go in, I immediately remind myself the necessity of research. So my immediate thought for you is, rather than worrying too much about where to go next and how to promote it, there's no easy formula for any of this, I immediately react to wanting to listen to people, listen to your customer, listen to people that are talking about escape rooms, that are reflecting on the positive, the negative. The beautiful thing about the internet is that everything is public. So it's as simple as typing in a keyword on Twitter or Instagram, and I can start to see who's using hashtags that are relevant. I want to ask those people, what did they love about their escape room experience from yours, but also there's escape rooms all over the world. I did one in Barcelona. It was so cool. It was like nuclear themed. It was really nerdy, but really cool. You want to, talk to people like me that are a fan of these things and get information. Research. It's a scary word, but actually, without overthinking it, it's a matter of simply having conversations with people to learn from your audience to be able to make more informed decisions. So my brain goes to thinking, how can we do some research? How can we start some conversations with people that we know are our customer to get ideas on where to go next? From their experience, they're going to be able to reflect on what worked and what didn't, and that is gold for you. You're welcome. One more question.
So I actually have a question from Daniela Sora, who's an alumni of Digital Arts and Design.
Oh, I know her.
Phil says hi. And so she's joining us on YouTube. She'd like to know how you keep up with the newest trends on social media like Instagram and TikTok.
Great question, Daniela. I love her. She's a great example of a student that has stayed on my radar and built a meaningful friendship. In fact, she stayed at my house, philpallen.house, and you know what she did for me? She painted a portrait of my house and gave it to me as a thank you. Isn't that so nice? Talk about creativity. Daniela's asking, how do you stay on top of the latest trends? Well, allow yourself permission to be on social media, not to consume it, to be strategic in your time, to learn. The beautiful thing about the internet is that everything is already out there. Decisions, time and money, millions of dollars and minutes that have been spent to make decisions that are all public facing. What brands are on TikTok? Are people still blogging? Are people using hashtags? How often are these brands or people updating their Instagram? Are they tagging locations? Are they using keywords? I mean, literally, I could go through a list of like 100 things off the top of my head where you can go, look, don't copy anyone, but be strongly inspired by what others are doing well. There are great resources out there to learn about the latest trends. One of my favorite for Instagram is Later, the app. I love their blog. But you know what, Daniela, so much of this is, yes, learning from what other experts have to say. I mean, people like me create content about latest trends, but so much of this is doing. She mentioned TikTok. Make sure we become friends on Instagram and TikTok, okay? That's an order. I couldn't figure out TikTok for the life of me. Why? Because I'm over the age of 30. So I hopped on there. I thought, okay, how can I make an engaging video in 15 seconds on a plane without Wi-Fi or distractions? I took out my phone. Just as I was about to put the butter from the airplane meal on top of my hot food, I thought everyone does that, right? Because then you can spread the butter on the bread. I thought maybe I'll make a TikTok out of this. Airplane meal hacks. So I take out my phone, which is on airplane mode because I'm on an airplane, and I create a draft that I posted on my layover. In 15 seconds, I said, airplane meal hacks. Put all your garbage in the biggest plastic bag. Put your butter on top of your hot meal so it melts so you can spread it on the bread. And when the flight attendant comes, bartender. I'm not on those kind of flights yet, but soon. First class, imagine, yeah. I am imagining it. No, when the flight attendant comes around and says, do you want wine, red or white? I've done this twice and it's worked. I act confused. And then if they're nice and we they can tell that I'm nice, I'm Canadian, they give me both. So I said my third tip is act confused when they ask red or white. And they might give you both. And I held up a red and white in my TikTok. Well, the next day when I woke up, I had 400,000 views on my 15-second TikTok, my third TikTok of all time. And by that evening, I had 2.3 million views. So, how do you get up on the latest trends? How do you figure them out? You do, you try, you experiment, you fail, and sometimes you succeed, even without Wi-Fi on an airplane. All of you, thank you, all of you could have been a million places today, and the fact that you decided to be here with me in this room or online means the world to me. I can't wait to meet all of you in person and online. I told you I'm just as active on social media. I'm so excited to meet all of you and for all of you to get everything you can out of this week. Thank you so much for being here, and have an amazing Hall of Fame week.